I was obsessed with and continue to be obsessed with the ocean and the mythology surrounding the ocean and sort of all of that. And this stems from that obsession, so it's called birth. Beginning. The lungs, sputtering under baptismal waters, drowning in individual moments as bradycardia slows from hummingbird to whale. The left hand, covered in cellophane, removed from deep freeze and dropped casually in the biohazard bin. The donation of eyes, one hazel, one fully green, from the body of a dead child to the body of a live one. Rediscovering the ocean after years of landlock, years of dry. The heart, wrapped in butcher block, reinserted into the cracked cavity of the chest. Ending. See also salinity. See also mythology. See also probability. See also biology. Revision, mythology. Aphrodite choked on sea foam, puked seawater until her skin turned salt white. The giant cockleshell scooped her up, consumed her, digested her until bone turned pearl to be spit onto the sand. Pearl grew legs, pearl grew breasts, pearl grew locks of gold, pearl grew curves in toes and fingers. Pearl grew into Aphrodite, her beauty buoyant in the waves. Aphrodite's apples perky in the cold, the red delicious scalloped, shelled, reflected. Woman turned pearl, turned woman, turned goddess, turned and turned and turned. Revision, probability. An awkward child, Aphrodite's ears like saucers under the uncontrollable frizz of prepubescent blonde pearls. Huge blue eyes hidden behind acorn-shaped, bottle-thick glasses. Long arms with hands large enough to carry boxes and boxes of crayons. She got a reduced-price meal ticket from the kind cafeteria ladies at lunch, could read and count and understand far sooner than any of her classmates. They hated her. Except it wasn't really hate at all, just an easy way to band together so they didn't feel so alone. Aphrodite coiled, pulled her legs underneath her body, laid her head down on the cold formica desk and dreamt of the ocean, interrupted only by the periodic gentle brush of her teacher's acrylic nails on the back of her neck. Aphrodite cried. At 16, her family moved to a different town in a different state. She got LASIK, pushed her shoulders back when she walked, lifted her chin from its resting place against her sternum, and learned how to control the curls that now hit her waist. She was beautiful, and the new school loved her. Aphrodite gossiped and was prom queen, and Poseidon noticed her popularity, claimed her as his own. Revision, biology. So small the waltzing between sperm and egg, between freedom and fertilization. It was not immaculate. No fireworks exploded, no stars formed in the eyes of lonely man or lonely woman, connected for moments in the closest of ways. Cells turned to fingers, slightly webbed, turned to fingerprints, and the skeleton from rubbery to bone, and then eyebrows and eyelids, and then she can see and follow a light, and then there are lungs, and she waits to feel breath, and then, so soft and slippery the path from womb to world. Childbirth from amniotic sea, placental island. Aphrodite human. Revision salinity. And as a side note, this is actually true, except for the name of the dog, which I changed. 1897. French mongrel, fur matted like tangled rosaries, like starvation, found wandering the streets lacking leftover rain. Scientists lured her easily, hands soft like kindness, meat fresh like love. She hesitated, wagged her dirty tail so slightly, and followed unknowing, unexpecting. They strapped her to a table and with a needle drained her, all of her blood through her femoral artery until her skin lost all pigment, and she did not breathe, and she did not bark, and she did not stir. They filled her with seawater, watched as her belly bloated and her veins ballooned. They expected her to die in hours. In 2 days, she slumped around the lab, dragged her paws, and ate slowly. In 8, her fur shone and her eyes glowed, and she did not resemble, in the slightest, the starving dog before. They named her Aphrodite. They thanked the gods of all kinds of water. Sea and blood and dog, all flowing, unexpected, dependent on each other, all living and breathing and moving. Revision, probability. Baby girl abandoned on the pier in Depot Bay, her fleece blanket moist from fog, stiff from salt. She stared at the vast and blue above her, listened to the tide scratch the barnacles clinging to the piles beneath her, lulled to sleep by the slow sighing of each small wave, each crest falling over and over and over one another. She did not cry. Fishermen, their beards vined and heavy with the sea, found her on their return to land, this small bundle of soft and pink and blonde and blue and quiet and wavy and living, definitely living, like the sea and the fish in the sky. Their hands bigger than her head, their skin rougher than dry coral, but with her soft, like the impermanence of footprints left in sand. They named her Aphrodite, raised her in the belly of their boat where she smelled like fish and her lips tasted like salt, where she never developed the ability to stand on dry land without the swaying. She was beautiful, and she loved the fishermen, and the fishermen loved her, but sometimes she stood on the deck and watched the desperate fish panic as they suffocated on air, and she felt very alone. She made up stories, sea foam and cockle shells, and parents in the sky and in the water who fought until they gave her up completely. She made up stories and eventually believed them. Revision, biology. Diagram of the heart contains aorta, arteries, atriums, valves, veins, ventricles. Diagram of the female reproductive system. Cervix, fallopian tubes, fundus, ovaries, uterus, vagina. There is no overlap. Nothing to explain the condition of unconditionality, of love, of family or connection. Nothing to explain the chemical makeup of blood in the ocean. Nothing to explain the loneliness, the little death, the internal drought occurring without either. Revision, salinity. Aphrodite always felt so connected to the sea, to the tide's regenerative coming and going, felt as if its life force existed in her veins. Deep seawater matches blood chemically. Every mineral known necessary to human tissue exists in matching ratios in the ocean. When she wandered too far inland, too far into the mountains or deserts or plains, she ached everywhere. She felt dry, gritty, like the salt inside her tried to push its way through her skin, felt her knees rubber band and the topsoil so stubborn and unforgiving. Every naturally occurring element exists in seawater, the collision of all things earthly and spiritual. While its pull is not understood, its existence undeniable. Aphrodite's fortune post-cheap Chinese food read, "Go back to your roots." So she watched SpongeBob, read missed connections on Craigslist to see if the ocean noticed her too, and wondered how she could be a part of the sea, fill her veins and lungs and cells, and survive. How she could reconnect. How she could rediscover her origins, which she was certain came from somewhere miles under the water, something not even the sun, with its infinite power, could reach. Revision, mythology. Uranus mixed with the sea foam, frothy, fertile, malleable. Blood and seawater interchangeable. Semen, seawater, blood, and Aphrodite, bred from hermaphrodite castration creation again and again, and thank you.